Not with your body, with your awareness. Leave the world behind for a moment. Leave behind your roles, your battles, your longing for approval. Today, we will speak as souls, not as man or woman, but as beings searching for light within the dark folds of our nature. You have heard of Carl Jung, yes? A wise man, a deep thinker. But more than that, a traveler of the human spirit. He explored not just the mind, but the hidden. And in his journey, he uncovered something that few dared to confront, something that concerns you, and every man who has ever loved, lost, or felt haunted by a woman's presence. Jung spoke of the anima, the feminine energy within a man's unconscious. She is not a fantasy. She is not romance. She is the shape of your soul in its feminine form. And unless you understand her, you will chase her blindly in the world, calling it love, when it is often projection. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, a young man came to me, broken by heartbreak. A woman he adored had left him. She was everything, he whispered. I don't know who I am without her. I looked into his eyes and said gently, no, she was not everything. She was a reflection. You fell in love with a mirror, not the woman, but the image she awakened inside you. This startled him, just like it may stir something within you now. But truth, my friend, never comes to comfort you. It comes to awaken you. Jung taught us that when a man does not consciously integrate his anima, he projects her onto women in his life. He turns them into symbols, the goddess, the mother, the seductress, the savior. But no woman can hold those roles without crumbling under their weight. And so the cycle begins. Infatuation, idealization, disappointment, blame. Have you known this cycle? Perhaps you still live in it. You see, the anima isn't just about women. It's about your inner landscape, your emotional sensitivity, your intuition, your vulnerability. If you repress her, she will rule you in shadow, appearing as lust, jealousy, obsession. I remember my own lesson. Before I came to the monastery, I too carried her in the shadows of my heart. Every woman I met, I wanted her to heal me, to make me feel whole. But wholeness cannot come from outside. It must be cultivated inside. By meeting your own inner feminine and learning to dance with her in silence. And that is why, even today, I tell young men, before you seek a woman to love, seek the woman within you who needs your acceptance. It is not weakness. It is integration. It is not confusion. It is balance. Jung called this the sacred marriage, the union of the masculine and feminine within. Only then does your love become clear, real, free from possession and illusion. But many men are afraid to look at their wounds, afraid to admit they carry rage toward their mothers, longings for approval, shame around feeling, and this fear becomes the cage they live in, acting strong, yet secretly broken. So I ask you now, quietly and truthfully, what image of a woman are you chasing, and what part of yourself does she represent? This question is not meant to accuse you. It is meant to free you. Let us stop blaming women for what we do not understand in ourselves. Let us stop chasing ghosts in the form of lovers. Instead, let us sit, breathe, reflect. In the next part of our journey, I will walk you through the 4 stages of the anima: Eve, Helen, Mary, and Sophia. Each stage reflects a man's spiritual growth, and most men remain stuck in the early stages, never reaching the final wisdom. When you know where you stand on this path, you begin to see not just women, but your entire emotional life differently. Let us walk that path, slowly, together. But for now, just listen to your breath, the silence between thoughts. There, the answers wait. So now that you've sat with the question, not just who is she, but what part of myself am I seeing in her? Let us journey deeper. Carl Jung described the anima's 4 stages as a map. a way to understand how a man's soul matures through his experiences with women and the feminine force within. These stages are not linear, not like steps on a staircase. They are circular, spiral. You revisit them, fall back, rise again. Let's begin with the first stage, Eve. She is the primal woman, the mother, the nurturer, the woman who gives life and care, and in whom a man sees survival. In this stage, a man seeks a woman because he feels incomplete. He wants to be mothered again, soothed, praised, protected from pain, and he mistakes this for love. But it's dependency. A man in this stage may become possessive, even fearful. If she pulls away, he feels abandoned. If she loves another, he feels betrayed not as a partner, but as a child losing his mother. I once guided a monk who had never truly left this stage. Even in his robe, even in his silence, he grieved the loss of a woman he had loved decades before, not because of who she was, but because she represented comfort he had not yet found in himself. To outgrow Eve, you must learn to hold yourself, to parent yourself, to sit with your needs and meet them without demanding others do it for you. The second stage is Helen. She is beauty, desire, the archetype of seduction and pleasure. Here, a man sees a woman as a muse, someone to conquer or be inspired by. He projects his longing for adventure, stimulation, and vitality onto her. But Helen is a mirror, not a source. She awakens your fire, but she cannot sustain it. If you idolize her, you lose your grounding. This is the stage where men fall quickly, charmed by appearances, enthralled by sensuality, but often when the illusion fades, they feel deceived, not because she lied, but because they only saw her through the lens of what they needed her to be. The third stage is Mary, the Divine Mother, the pure, spiritual guide. Here, a man begins to see the feminine as sacred, not just sensual. He respects her mind, her essence. He no longer clings, he reveres. But even here, there is danger. Because when you place a woman on a pedestal, she ceases to be human. You see her as a saint. And saints are not allowed to stumble. Many relationships fall apart here, not because the woman failed, but because the man could not accept her imperfections. He wanted her to be a goddess, untouched by shadow. I remember an older monk who once confessed, "I only loved women I could not touch. Once I had them, I no longer saw them as sacred." You see the danger, don't you? To truly love someone, you must love them not as an ideal, but as they are. Flawed, powerful, evolving. And finally, the fourth stage, Sophia. Wisdom. This is where a man no longer seeks to possess, worship, or escape through a woman. He sees her as equal, as mirror, as companion on the path. In Sophia, the anima is integrated. A man becomes whole, not because of a woman, but because he has embraced his own depths. He no longer projects, he perceives. It is said that a man who walks with Sophia is not ruled by craving or fear. He moves with clarity. He loves with presence. He listens not to respond, but to understand. And now I ask you gently, where are you on this path? Don't judge your answer. Just witness it. Whether you see Eve, Helen, Mary, or Sophia in the women around you, know that this is not about them. It's about the stage of evolution within you. Every man's journey is different. Some stay stuck in longing, some awaken through heartbreak, some rise slowly, silently, step by step. But all must eventually face the anima. For she is not outside of you, she is you. When you are unconscious of her, she rules you. When you meet her with awareness, she transforms you, and perhaps now you see, this is not Carl Jung's truth alone. It is yours. It is the truth you've carried since your first wound, since your first love, since the moment you first felt the ache of needing something outside yourself to feel whole. You have come far, but this is only the beginning. In the next part of our journey together, we will explore what happens when a man rejects his anima, when he fears her, fights her, or attempts to bury her under masculinity. We'll speak of emotional repression, failed relationships, anger, and addiction to control. But for now, breathe. This space is for stillness. Let your heart hold what your mind cannot yet name. Let us walk further now. You have heard of the stages: Eve, Helen, Mary, and Sophia, and you've gently looked into the mirror of your own journey. But what happens, dear soul, when a man is afraid of what he sees? When instead of meeting the Anima with curiosity, he meets her with resistance? Carl Jung warned us of this. What you resist not only persists, but grows in size. The Anima, when ignored or rejected, does not disappear. She recedes into the shadows, and in that darkness, she becomes distorted. She becomes a storm. When a man is disconnected from the feminine within, he begins to fear what he does not understand. He sees emotion as weakness. He sees intuition as irrational. He sees vulnerability as failure. And perhaps worst of all, he sees women not as equals or reflections, but as threats or trophies. This is the root of many wounds you see today, not just in relationships, but in society. Men chasing power, but feeling empty. Men building empires, but failing in intimacy. Men who can dominate rooms, but cannot sit alone with their own feelings. You see, repression of the Anima leads to violence against the self, and in time, that violence spills outward. I once spoke with a man who was considered successful. He had wealth, reputation, charm, yet he came to me with trembling hands and eyes that couldn't rest. He said, "I can lead teams, win deals, and speak to crowds, but I cannot tell my wife that I am afraid. I cannot admit to myself that I am exhausted, and I cannot cry, because I've forgotten how." That is not strength, my friend. That is spiritual starvation. Carl Jung described this repression as a split in the soul. A man who rejects the Anima becomes half alive, and so he compensates, with addiction, with anger, with endless achievement. But nothing fills the hole, because the hole is within. Some men become hypermasculine, rigid, unyielding. They become soldiers in their own war against emotion. They fear softness in themselves, so they ridicule it in others. They reject empathy, dismiss creativity, and mock the very sensitivity that could have saved them. But some men go another way. They fall into obsession. The Anima, unacknowledged, begins to seduce them from the shadows. These are the men who worship women, but do not truly see them. They become lost in fantasy, constantly falling in love with ideas, not individuals, and when reality enters, when the woman dares to be human, they feel betrayed. Not because she wronged them, but because she no longer fits their inner myth. This creates cycles of attraction and rejection, closeness and fear. And it all stems from the same source, a man who does not know the woman within. So what is the path forward? It is not domination. It is not submission. It is not pretending that the feminine doesn't matter. It is integration. It is the sacred art of looking within and asking, what feelings do I fear? What parts of myself do I avoid? What is the lesson in this longing? When a man begins to listen instead of conquer, to feel instead of control, he does not become less masculine. He becomes whole. In my own path, I struggled too. There were years where I confused silence with suppression. I wore my robe like armor. But within me, the Anima wept. She longed to be acknowledged, not as a weakness, but as a whisper of the divine. And one night in deep meditation, I saw her, not as a ghost, but as a presence. Calm. Clear. She said, "You have nothing to fear in softness." And that changed everything. To embrace your inner feminine is not to abandon your masculine self. It is to unite them, like day and night, like breath and stillness. Only then do you become free, free from projections, free from confusion, free to love without chains and live without masks. In the next part of our journey together, we will talk about relationships, not just romantic ones, but how this inner dynamic plays out in how you love, how you leave, how you heal. We will explore the sacred union of two souls who are both conscious of their inner landscape, and how such love is not built on dependency, but on presence. For now, just sit with this. What parts of yourself have you abandoned to feel strong, and what might happen if you welcomed them home? Welcome back, dear soul. We've been walking together through quiet forests of the mind and heart. Now let us enter one of the deepest valleys, relationships, where the soul meets its reflection, its challenge, and its opportunity. Carl Jung taught us that every relationship is a mirror. Not a mirror of the other person's truth, but a mirror of our inner world, our fears, our desires, and our wounds. When a man is unconscious of his anima, his relationship becomes a battlefield. Not because of his partner, but because he does not yet know himself. Let me tell you a story from my early years in the monastery. There was a man, much older than me, who had once been a husband, a father, and a successful businessman. He entered the monastery not out of peace, but out of pain. He had left everything, his home, his family, even his name behind. One evening under the Bodhi tree, I asked him, "What brought you here?" He said, "I lost the woman I loved because I only knew how to need her, not how to see her." He had, in his own words, made her into a lifeline, a savior, an idea. And when she began to evolve, to change, to become more than his version of her, he felt betrayed, not by her actions, but by the illusion breaking apart. This, my friend, is what happens when we do not know the anima within. We search for her outside. We try to find the missing piece in another soul, but no one can complete what you have refused to cultivate in yourself. Healthy love begins not with ownership, but with observation. To love someone is to allow them to change without fearing that you'll be left behind. Many men confuse stability with control. They believe love means that a woman should never outgrow the box they built for her. But the feminine energy, both within and in the women around you, is not still water. It is a river, always flowing, always moving. When you fear that movement, you cling, and when you cling, you crush. Let us now speak of the awakened man, the one who has faced his anima, embraced his feminine essence, and integrated his emotional body. This man does not fall into obsession or detachment. He listens. He speaks slowly. He does not demand love. He invites it. He does not fear intimacy. He nurtures it. This kind of man can hold a woman's emotions without trying to fix them. He can celebrate her independence without feeling threatened. He no longer measures his masculinity by how much he can dominate, but by how deeply he can connect. The true sacred union, Jung said, happens when both the anima and animus, the inner feminine and the inner masculine, are conscious in each partner. This means each person is aware of their emotional patterns, their shadows, and their gifts. They don't blame, they reflect, they grow together, rather than trying to complete each other. This is rare, but not impossible. And it begins, always, with you. Ask yourself, do I listen to understand or to defend? Do I see my partner as a soul or as a role? Do I feel safe with softness or do I feel exposed? I tell you this gently. If your answer is one of discomfort, do not run. Lean in. For discomfort is often the soul's way of asking for transformation. A man who knows himself, who knows his inner feminine, can navigate relationships with grace. He knows when to lead, when to follow, when to hold space, when to release. He does not fear being misunderstood. He embraces the opportunity to clarify, to learn. He does not love to possess. He loves to witness, to behold, to bow before the mystery that another human being truly is. So what does this mean for you? It means you are not here to perfect another person. You are here to perfect your presence, to walk with awareness, to love with gentleness, to lead with humility. In our next and final part together, we will turn toward the inner temple. We'll explore how to live in daily alignment with this wisdom, not just in love, but in solitude, in purpose, in presence. We'll talk about the quiet disciplines and sacred habits that awaken the balanced man, a man who no longer fears the feminine, but honors it. You are closer than you think. But for now, let us sit in silence for a few breaths. Let your heart digest what your mind cannot rush, because wisdom does not come through speed, it arrives through stillness. Welcome back. Dear one, you've walked with me through reflections, wounds, wisdom, and wonder. You've met the Anima in shadow and in light. You've explored love not as possession, but as presence. Now let us enter the inner sanctuary, the place where silence speaks, where the soul roots itself in truth, and where theory becomes living practice. Because it is one thing to understand the feminine within, but it is another to live with that understanding, to embody it, to carry it into every room you enter, every word you speak, every breath you take. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." So now we turn inward, not just to understand ourselves, but to live as awakened men. Let us begin with a truth that many resist. Balance is not something you find, it is something you build. And balance between the masculine and feminine within a man does not happen in one moment of insight. It happens through daily devotion. Just as the river shapes the rock not through force but through consistency, so too does the awakened man shape his inner world through daily ritual. I encourage you to create sacred space each day, not a physical temple, but a moment of stillness. 10 minutes to sit, to breathe, to feel. Ask yourself gently, what did I avoid? Feeling today? What story did I repeat to protect myself? Did I meet the world with presence or with pretense? These questions are not punishments, they are doors. Let me share a practice from my own daily life. Each morning, before the sun rises, I light a candle, not for any god, but for the part of me that forgets. I sit in silence, not to think, but to listen to the sadness that I ignored, to the joy that I rushed past, to the feminine voice within that says, "You are enough even when you do nothing." That voice, my friend, is your compass. When you hear her, honor her. When you feel the impulse to rush, pause. When you want to prove your worth, rest instead. When you feel ashamed for needing softness, lean deeper into it. This is how we heal the distorted masculine, not by condemning it, but by retraining it. Teach yourself that silence is strong. Teach yourself that vulnerability is brave. Teach yourself that love is not earned through labor, but through presence. You may still feel resistance. That's okay. It is not weakness to doubt. It is weakness to ignore the doubt. Remember, the Anima, the inner feminine, is not here to defeat your masculinity. She is here to refine it, to make it conscious, to restore balance to a world too often drunk on domination and starving for softness. And in doing so, you don't just become a better man, you become a whole human being. Let your masculinity be rooted in awareness, not in armor. Let your power be measured by your peace, not by your performance. You are not just a mind, you are not just a will, you are a vessel of consciousness, where strength and sensitivity coexist. Carl Jung didn't fear the feminine, he revered it, because he saw what many are afraid to admit, that the soul is not either or, it is both. So the next time you feel the old instinct to dominate, try instead to hold space. The next time you want to correct, try instead to listen. And when you feel lost, don't reach for something to fix. Reach inward and sit with what is. This is not a lesson you master once. This is a path, a way of being, a vow you make to yourself again and again. And now that you know, you can no longer unknow. You are responsible for your light, not to be perfect, but to be present. Before we end this page, I offer you one final image. A man, eyes closed, heart open, not afraid of what stirs inside him, but curious, gentle, and at peace. That man can love, that man can lead, that man can live, You are becoming that man. My friend, you've arrived, not at an ending, but at a threshold. What you've walked through with me, these reflections on Carl Jung's teachings, on the anima, on relationships, on emotional presence, on sacred masculinity, were never just about learning. They were about remembering. Remembering what modern life often forces us to forget. That a man's true strength is not found in how much he can resist, but in how fully he can receive. Not in how tightly he can grip, but in how openly he can let go. Carl Jung did not discover the feminine in man because he wanted to explain women. He discovered her because he wanted men to stop suffering in silence. 2. Stop projecting their inner chaos onto the women they loved, to stop fearing emotion, intuition, mystery, and to start welcoming the sacred rhythm of wholeness. You see, the ultimate truth of this teaching is not dark. It is liberating. It only feels dark because it calls you to face your shadows. The parts of yourself that you've exiled, the soft boy who cried alone, the lover who yearned to be chosen, the dreamer who was told to grow up. But in those shadows lies your light. You will not become less of a man by integrating the feminine. You will become a man who cannot be shaken by emotion because he understands it. Man who cannot be controlled by desire because he honors it without being owned by it. A man who does not chase women blindly because he's no longer trying to find in them what he's neglected in himself. This is the man the world needs now. Balanced, centered, awake. He is not loud, but he is powerful. He does not conquer, but his presence transforms. He is both grounded like a mountain and flowing like a river. If you've felt something stir in your soul through this journey, don't silence it, cultivate it. Start small. Create sacred rituals of reflection, perhaps journaling each night or practicing stillness each morning. Begin noticing the feminine presence in your life, not just in people, but in the world. In the moon, the rain, the music, the quiet, and most of all, in you. Don't be afraid to feel. Don't be ashamed to soften. Don't mistake numbness for peace. The world taught you to be strong by closing your heart. But real strength is the heart that stays open, even when it's been broken. You may not get everything right. You will stumble. You will forget. That's okay, but if you can remember this one truth, you will always find your way back. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Carl Jung. The transformation begin not with someone else, but with you. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be present, to be whole, to be human. And in doing so, you heal generations of silent men and free the women who bore their weight. You've made it here, but the path doesn't end with words. It begins with practice, with patience, with purpose. And I will leave you now. Not with answers, but with space. For it is within space that the soul speaks. And in that silence, I trust. You will hear her. The Anima, your guide, your mirror, your teacher. Honor her, honor yourself, and walk forward with your eyes open, your heart full, and your spirit awake. I bow to the truth within you. Go in peace, go in wholeness, go in love.